y'all. I am sorry about missing Tuesday. I just grabbed the drops. No, thank you. I got really sick. I don't know how I caught this cold. I am doing a bit better today. I was able to get some gardening stuff done yesterday, but after doing that, I was like, I do not have the energy to try to paint and do my spiel. So I rested so that I could do this today, and I should be, fingers crossed, back on Friday for another one of these. But, it has been a busy few days, and even if you take a day off, you'll miss a shit ton of ridiculousness under this Trump regime. We are 7 days into the government shutdown that has over 700K federal employees without pay, basically furloughed until further notice. The Republicans, who are the key players and why our government had to shut down, because they were trying to pack in not only racist lies to their bills, but they were also spreading the easily debunkable rumor that this was to stop illegal immigrants from getting on health insurance. And I explained it in the last Crafton chat why that was just simply not the case, and why people need to stop listening to lies and just use common sense. Illegal immigrants cannot register for any kind of federal or state health insurance. But this bill that the GOP wanted to push forward would have harmed millions of Americans who are already on state and federal health insurance. So, in order to try to get around that, Mike Johnson, who is the current leader of the Republican House, has pushed lies along with GOP Senate, and it's all imploding. And it just adds to the week of chaos in this clown show that we call the Trump administration. And I am going to get to so much of that. But today, our art piece is a 3D print of Mau Mau from the Apothecary Diaries. Some of you know from my Bonnet Chronicles and some other live things I've done on Twitch and YouTube. I am a huge Apothecary Diaries fan. Mau Mau is my favorite character. She is one of the main. She is the main. She's the apothecary. And as you see this setting, she's sitting with her pestle and some stuff that she's about to brew up. Mau Mau is a smart character, and I think that's why a lot of people like myself gravitated to her, because we love seeing smart women in such settings. It's set in a feudal Asian society, and even though it's a Japanese product, I feel the model is more akin to ancient China, because I've been watching a lot of C dramas set in ancient times, and because of that, I really truly love the fact that the Apothecary Diaries is going strong. They are gearing up for a season 3. I have been faithfully watching it. I collect the manga. I am so excited about this painting, but we are going to get to it. I don't want to ramble too much because I need to save my voice. I'm going to open up with predictions of a depression, if not a full collapse. We have one of my favorite people to feature on here, Cowboy Paul, with his thoughts on why our current administration is going to lead us to financial ruin. Let's get him fired up while we get the art reference of Mau Mau popped up here. And then we are going to start old Cowboy Paul up and get him started. Yep. And to even at all. And I remember the first housing crisis we had back in 2008. And I say first, but it's the first one that I, as an adult back then, could really understand what was going on. They called it the housing bubble. And they were talking about how it's bursting and how there's going to be a ton of foreclosures. And some people got opportunistic bought up houses thinking that they could rent them out or resell them after the bust, and a lot of people went broke trying for that strategy. One of the things I told people early on, because a lot of my friends were like, well, you guys are buying a house out there, don't you want to buy stuff in town? No, because it was way more expensive to buy in town, especially downstate where we were originally living. And because we wasn't just getting a house out of this, we got a full property. This was a better deal for my husband and I's money. And I don't regret buying this place. It's manageable. We are lucky that we budget well enough to where hopefully whatever this administration does, it won't directly impact us. But it is hard watching people who work their whole lives to be homeowners, no matter what age or income bracket. When you finally own your own piece of property, there is no better feeling than that. And we are going to see a lot of people who busted their ass to get to that point lose everything they worked so hard for. We have a shit ton of federal workers that are potentially facing this crisis now, and an administration that doesn't care because they're going to use this as an excuse to gut things. But it's not just a housing crisis. The job market loss is already great. I guess that's what the bum meant by making things great again. But on top of that, things like the auto industry, nobody has the funds, the unlimited funds to buy cars. My husband and I were looking into getting a new car for the winter time while I could take over the car we currently have so that we have an emergency just in case. And just the down payment and what they want per month, when you stack that on a budget that we are keeping strict so that we can get our home paid off, it's not feasible. And that is a sad reality for a lot of us Americans. We are lucky that we got our main car paid off. I'm grateful to that. The only thing we have to worry about is insurance. But to get a new car right now in this economy, it's a risk. Cars depreciate in value. Our current car, we couldn't even trade it in for the proper amount to offset the cost of the new car. So right now, we're making do. And a lot of Americans are going to have to make do, if not give up stuff outright because of this administration. But let him continue. Yeah, there's nothing smart about them.
that are just perfectly fine. The crime had been at an all-time low. Yeah, the economy is about to collapse, and we have nothing but idiots in control.
Exactly.
You need to prepare yourself.
And their whole
So the global auto industry.
and to stop that there because it's repeating. The whole idea to try to distract from the real fact that he is ushering us into a literal Great Depression by saying, look over there, crime. Look over there. I'm going to get tough on these sanctuary cities and other really racist, bigoted things to distract from the fact that he is draining our financial control and literally eroding all the norms of a presidency to literally do backdoor deals and waste money. And I've got another video by Anonymous News that I'm going to play a little bit later to just really show you just how bad it is becoming with this administration. But it's like I said, the whole idea that a Great Depression couldn't happen again is crazy because in 1988, we almost had one. And it was because the Bush administration, Bush Sr., not Bush Jr., decided to go back on his no new taxes thing because he realized as a president he's going to have to raise taxes to offset all the issues that happened in 88, thus preventing a full depression. We are not dealing with smart people. Now, I might not have fully gelled with George Bush Sr. at all because I remember the Reagan administration and their trickle down stuff. But at least he was honest enough to say, hey, this no new taxes thing that I promised wasn't feasible. And hate me if you want, I don't want to see our society fall into a full recession, if not a full depression. And he took the hit. Clinton got elected right after him because of it. Of course, he got us back with his dumb son. But that being said, there was still enough fallout from a president having to change their ways to thus save us. So it's not just a democratic problem. It is a bunch of ingrates who only think of one button issues. And it's these one button issues for me it's just the racism. You can't tell me that these people aren't voting for racism anymore. But if you don't believe me or Texas Paul's word on this, let's bring up the NYC Federal Reserve because they have some thoughts on what's going to happen.
Let's begin with some breaking news out of the New York Fed. For that, we'll turn to Steve Leisman. Morning, Steve.
Morning, Carl. New York Fed inflation expectations in their consumer expectations survey. The expectations are rising. Unemployment concerns are increasing. Here's the expectations for inflation 1 year out, up 0.2% to 3.4%. That's the highest since April 2025, around the time of the reciprocal tariffs. The 3 year unchanged at 3%. That is the fifth straight month right at that 3% level. The 5 year.
And if you're thinking, well, 3% doesn't seem like a lot because of the tariffs, you've got to realize that this is a 3% increase on imported goods, on imported equipment. I was watching a TikTok compilation of all of these MAGA voters who were like, oh, this is going to cost us a goose egg. Yous are all being hyperbolic, and now they're making TikToks crying about the cost of equipment because their dumbasses didn't realize that a lot of the equipment they rent, whether it's supposedly made in America, may have components that are made elsewhere overseas, elsewhere like China, and that is going to be costly. Anybody who runs shops that used to ship internationally now have to question whether it is remotely economically feasible. And these tariffs and thing that they did against anything under $800 now being taxed to mail, it is going to destroy us bit by bit. And it's not even a slow erosion anymore. Because combined with the shutdown, we are in dangerous economic times.
You're also at 3%. That's up 0.1%, the highest since May 2024. Inflation expectations increased for food, gas, medical care, and rent. Expectations for growth in food prices was the highest since March of 2023. On to the labor market. Earnings growth down 0.1%.
Keeping your employees safe is a top priority. First aid and safety services from Cintas has the products and support you need, including first aid, safety, and PPE supplies, eye wash stations, AED, and CPR training. Our dedicated Cintas service reps understand your business and have the industry knowledge to help your employees perform better today and feel better prepared for tomorrow. Visit Cintas.com/firstaid and get ready for the workday.
Or the expectations for earning growth to 2.4%. That's the third straight decline and the lowest since May of 2021. Expectations for higher unemployment up 2 percentage points to 41.1%. Third increase in a row, highest since April 2025. Job loss, though, that expectation for job loss increased 0.4% to 14.9. Fourth increase in a row, highest since April 2025. One positive thing, expectations for finding a job did go up by 2.5 points, but it's really a rebound from a series low. It remains near the pandemic low of that concern about finding a job if you lose one. Spending growth expectations declined 0.3% to 4.7%. And we just are getting some headlines here where Stephen Myron, the new Fed governor, talking about the idea the neutral rate is higher. He sees supply side policies from the Trump administration weighing down or reducing the idea of saying the Fed is really further from neutral because of the lower neutral rate. Sarah?
Yeah, how close do these inflation expectations track with the inflation numbers? Hopefully we'll get one next week. Let's see if we're still in shutdown.
They're not. They don't track right with it, Sarah. As you know, they kind of are something that precedes it a year ahead of time, depending upon what's going on. Very much, they're close to food prices, close to expectations for gas prices. The Fed is less concerned with the 1 and the 3 and more with the 5. At some point, Sarah, the Fed has to turn and look at itself and say, look, we've been stuck at 3% on the 5-year inflation outlook for a very long time here. Are we in danger of changing the outlook or the expectation in the economy that our real target is 3, not 2? That's a danger for the Fed that they're going to have to deal with at some point. Myron's saying he believes that rents are going to be coming down, and that's going to be something that will help shape inflation expectations. That's a big part of his call for more.
Yeah. That is speculation, because in certain areas, rent is moderate, but in big cities, like my hometown in New York, I know that I would be paying triple what I'm paying for my current mortgage to live as comfortably, even in a house in New York, especially in an apartment, depending on where you got the apartment, or a brownstone. And the fact that a lot of people are feeling the crunch of the current prices for groceries. Like, I shop smart. I try to buy in bulk where I can. We have extra deep freezers for stuff. I am growing my own produce. I put a YouTube short up of that. We budget down to the very grain on what we spend each month so that my family is taken care of. But not every American can afford that right now. And I had the wherewithal, especially after the pandemic, to buy certain things in bulk that help me further stock up, like flours and different oat grains and rice. We have so much rice now that's crazy. And we keep it in airtight containers because you never know. And with the current administration, like RFK, being in charge of our food and drug, I just don't trust what comes out anymore. I'm not one of those normal conspiracy theories about stuff, but the guy has a brainworm, and he's in charge of our health and safety concerns, and I don't feel safe under him. Come 2026, there are going to be a lot of us who just try to rely on our own. We're going to start going to smaller, well-known meat markets for our chicken and other needs, because trusting these big corporations that are giving kickbacks to this current regime isn't going to be good for those of us who don't want to get poisoned. It's sick, but it is the precautions that I am warning all of you who listen to me to really take seriously at this point.
Aggressive return to neutral by the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, and he's been pushing this idea that the inflation changes, the immigration changes are going to be positive and put pressure on inflation.
Right.
All right,
and that is their whole thing. Everything's coming down once again.
In addition to your titles, you also have...
No, I don't want to deal with that guy, Ohio State man who looked away from sexual abuse. But everything comes down to, let's stoke the fires of hate, because if people want to blame things on immigrants, they'll forget that we are literally fucking up everything economy-wise. And this is why I said we have got to keep our eyes open. Those of us who aren't falling for this blame the immigrants okie doke, because it's dangerous for our economy to ignore how bad these dum-dums are running shit into the ground. But it is just not on the financial or economic scope. We have a legal scope where even GOP senators are fed up with AG Pam-Bondi's bullshit. So I'm going to play some of this for you all, because when I say that people are getting tired of Pam-Bondi, I am not just being hyperbolic. Let's fire this up. And you might recognize this gentleman. Kennedy, he's from Louisiana. He is one of John Oliver's favorite guys to pick on because he's obviously a clown. But even he's fed up of Pam-Bondi. Let me get this fired up.
I've got to ask you about this, General. Secretary Howard Lutnick on October 1 gave an interview to the New York Post about Mr. Epstein. And he described Mr. Epstein as, quote, the greatest blackmailer ever, close quote. Have you reviewed that transcript of that interview?
I have not reviewed the transcript, but I saw the clip of it.
Okay. It appears that Secretary Lutnick was Mr. Epstein's next door neighbor. In fact, their townhomes shared a...
Those short 5 weeks, He astonished us. We knew there was an issue, and one of the recommendations was
wall. And the reporter that was talking to Mr. Lutnick, she asked how other prominent men could have been associated with Epstein when Mr. Lutnick could immediately sense that he was a, quote, pervert. And then Secretary Lutnick said, or rather the reporter said, did they see it and ignore it? Do you remember that from the interview?
I do.
And Commerce Secretary Lutnick said, no, they participated.
Wow.
And then Commerce Secretary Lutnick goes on to say, quote, that's what his MO was. You know, get a massage. And what happened in that massage room, I assume, was a video. This guy was the greatest blackmailer ever, blackmailed people. That's how he had money, end quote. Is that true?
Senator, as our July memo said, we did not uncover evidence. This case has gone through 3 administrations, as well as former U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta.
I know that, Pam, but have you interviewed Secretary Lutnick?
No, Senator.
Do you plan to?
Why not?
If he wants to talk to the FBI or the FBI wants to talk to him, that is more than on.
Don't you think you ought to talk to him after this interview?
Senator, if Howard Lutnick wants to speak to that.
He's asking a really relevant question. Howard Lutnick, the yutz that he is, apparently knew that Jeffrey Epstein engaged in stuff like blackmail. He would get people in compromising positions, whether it's the lie of, oh, it was just massages, because come on now. And this is relevant. A lot of people are still harping on the Epstein files. I'm not one of those people because I believe that if they had something really bad against certain people, it would be put out, whether it hurt them or not. But the fact that they're keeping it quiet means their boy Trump is knee deep in this. And the fact that this is the Attorney General for our whole entire country, and she is dodging her responsibilities like a Matrix character, should tell you something. Let me get the finish.
FBI, and if Director Patel wants to speak to Howard Lutnick, absolutely.
Patel's an idiot.
Okay. Maybe we ought to get Mr. Lutnick in here too, Mr. Chairman.
Wow. Now, I don't normally like this guy. I'm not even going to lie. He gets on my nerves. I only watched him when it came down to the John Oliver making fun of him stuff. But even that is not going to distract from the fact that we are facing a literal economic recession. But scandal, deflecting, and racism seems to be the only thing this administration can do to try to keep their main man, Orange Spray Tan, out of trouble. And like I said, while he's in the presidential seat, he has immunity. So honestly, even if stuff came out about him, and obviously there's stuff about him and Epstein, the dude was able to call the fucking White House in the middle of the night during his first term. But even if they don't have a concrete gotcha right now, the fact that they are trying this hard not to present facts properly and letting key administration players like Lutnick, which I hate saying that he's a key administration player, but Trump really likes ass kissers like him, go on interviews and say stuff like this and not receive any real pushback is why we are in dangerously dumb times. But it's all throughout the administration. And here we have Anonymous News and Anonymous breaking down Caroline Leavitt's ridiculousness, because the rot is from the fucking bottom up with this administration. And you can't get more bottom than a press secretary who he's already expressed that even though she's full into Trump Kool-Aid, isn't doing enough of a good job for him. So let's get this one fired up.
The voice they cannot silence, the shadow that watches when power hides in the dark, the echo that remains after their microphones go dead. We don't serve governments, we don't protect politicians, and we don't worship money. We follow truth. And tonight, the truth leads us straight into the chaos unfolding inside Trump's collapsing government, where his own press secretary, Karoline Leavitt, has just suffered one of the worst public meltdowns in modern political history. What happened today at that press conference wasn't just a bad briefing. It was a full-scale implosion, broadcast for the world to see. We are now in day 6 of the Trump-triggered government shutdown, a shutdown that began with his ego and continues because of his pride. His approval ratings are sinking like a stone. The economy is jittering, and millions of Americans are wondering how they'll pay their bills, while the president blames everyone but himself. And in the middle of it all, standing alone under the White House lights, Karoline Leavitt tried to spin the unspinnable. What started as a routine press conference quickly became a public collapse, one that even Fox News called painful to watch. The moment began with a question about the abortion pill. Reporters asked about the FDA's decision to approve a generic version, which was legally required under federal law. Leavitt tried to dodge the fury coming from Trump's so-called pro-life allies, saying, "It's not an endorsement, it's simply following the law."
Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Now, just to interrupt that really quick, because a lot of people ding Joe Biden on his stance that he had to follow the law and respected the state's choices when it came to abortion, even after the reversal of Dobbs. Even though, as a Catholic, while he personally didn't believe in abortion, he did have more pro-choice leanings as a president. This administration campaigned on being pro-life, and now, because they know they have to follow the letter of the law, are pissing off their more angrier, hardline fundamentalists about abortion. And this is what I mean about politics being so fickle. You've got these one-topic assholes who think that their topic is more important than following the letter of the law. And with all the other lawlessness that Trump has allowed to go on, they're more pissed that, well, you can break the law for finance stuff, but what about the babies? It's a mess. It really is. Now watch what this dingbat says.
That the FDA was required by federal law to approve the new abortion pill last week. Is the administration considering steps to undo this in light of requests from pro-life Congress members and organizations?
I think Secretary Kennedy and the Department of Health and Human Services, as I addressed in the briefing last week, were following the law, and we will continue to do so. As I said last week as well, it's not an endorsement of this drug by any means. It's just a law that they were following.
But that answer only deepened the rift. The evangelical base heard betrayal, the moderates heard weakness, and the press heard fear. You could see.
But the problem with that, and this is why we have to stop giving in to fundies, is that they don't believe in compromise. You want to teach your young ones not to have an abortion, and they want to wholeheartedly believe in that, that's fine. I've always said it's more of a gray area for me. Well, I personally do not want to ever be in a situation where I have to make such a choice. I understand as a survivor of assault that there is absolutely no way I could have carried the child of that attack. Given my age at the time, too, when it happened, there's no way I would have gone through all of that. I was fortunate enough that it didn't result in that, but had a pregnancy stemmed from that attack, it was non-negotiable that I would not have had that child for my own safety and health concerns, and the fact that it was an unwanted attack. And I know some people are like, well, you're one of the exceptions. I don't care. It is between the person who has to carry the child to term, their partner, and their doctor. And depending on the situation, it might not even reliably be their partner. I think that's what a lot of people are afraid of. These men who are violent and abusive, who want complete control over their partners via a child. And that can be so dangerous. And we're already moving towards that. It was detailed in Project 2025, how they want to control us via reproduction. And it's insane that people are ignoring this.
See it in her eyes, she knew she was defending a man whose coalition is fracturing from within. Then the questions turned to the shutdown itself. A reporter asked whether Trump was reaching out personally to Democrats to resolve the crisis. Levitt smiled awkwardly and said,
I heard you say that you want people to call their Democratic senators. Is the president calling Democratic senators himself? Can you say what he's doing today to resolve the shutdown?
Yep, I was just in the Oval Office. He was on the phone with Speaker Johnson. He's also spoken with the Senate Majority Leader, who are in touch with, of course, moderate Democrats and Democrats across the board, who we understand hopefully want to do the right thing by their constituents to reopen the government. So the president is being kept very well apprised of the ongoing.
This is bullshit. Want to do the right thing by their constituents. They are trying to do the right thing by not getting millions of their constituents kicked off much needed health care. One of the most expensive things, and I learned this the hard way, not even 2 years ago, dealing with a serious health issue, is health care. And without insurance, my family would have completely been screwed. So the fact that she could sit there and say, oh, do the right thing, the Republicans need to do the right thing because they are currently the reason why we are in this shutdown, no matter how many lies they try to spin about who's responsible.
Ongoing shutdown on Capitol Hill. And of course, his position is very clear. There's nothing to negotiate. Just reopen the government, and then we can talk about all the important issues facing.
But then she said the quiet part out loud. There's nothing to negotiate. That was the moment the room shifted. You could feel the air freeze, because that single line exposed everything it admitted, that Trump caused the shutdown and is refusing to end it. He's holding the government hostage to his own image. From there, things spiraled. When asked about health care.
And then on the Affordable Care Act, is he willing to give more, to share more on what he'd like to negotiate on the Affordable Care Act later? Is he willing to say specifically what he would like and when?
But look, the president is definitely committed to fixing and improving our healthcare system. You saw it again last week when he had one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world coming into the Oval Office and promising to lower drug prices by 200, 300, 100%.
That makes absolutely no sense mathematical wise, honestly speaking. The whole idea of 200, 300, 100%, pick a percent, Caroline, and stick with it. In basic math, you don't go over 100%, you dingbat.
In many cases, for various types of drugs for American patients. That is a huge fix to a broken system that has been ripping off the American people for far too long. So the president's very committed to this. But right now, we need to reopen the federal government, and the president is remaining very firm in that position.
The reporters laughed. One of them quietly whispered, "That's not even mathematically possible." And she doubled down, repeating the number, as if repetition could make it true. It was a surreal moment, a living example of how disconnected this administration has become from reality. Next came foreign policy. Levitt claimed that technical talks were happening in Egypt between Special Envoy Witkoff and Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, to broker a ceasefire.
Which is such nepotism, and he wasn't even supposed to be cleared. I remember during the first term of this ridiculous farce of an administration, how our Congress really warned against allowing him and Ivanka such clearances. But Trump's going to do what he wants. National security be damned. Geopolitics issues be damned. He is determined to run things the way he wants at everybody else's expense. And it is frustrating and stupid. Just ridiculous.
Between Israel and Hamas.
What is President Trump's expectations for talks today and I guess this week in Egypt? And is there a new timeline that the president is giving all sides to reach an agreement?
Yes, there are technical talks happening right now in Egypt amongst Special Envoy Witkoff and Mr. Kushner, as well as...
You notice how she called him Jared also. That is so unprofessional. She is a very unprofessional speaker. And I just don't even see how she got that job, except for the obvious that Trump probably based her and evaluated her on looks instead of actual communications merit. But okay, let's get back to Press Secretary Barbie.
As their respective parties from all sides. What we saw take place on Friday, and I have not commented on that from the podium yet, is truly remarkable. You've seen all sides of this conflict agree that this war needs to end.
But she avoided every question about why Kushner, a man with no diplomatic experience and deep financial ties to foreign powers, was involved again. Let's not forget the intelligence community once warned Trump not to give Kushner a security clearance due to his debts and foreign exposure. Trump overrode those warnings anyway. That's not patriotism. That's nepotism weaponized. And Levitt defended it, calling the talks remarkable progress. But even the reporters couldn't hide their disbelief. Then came the layoffs. One journalist asked,
Caroline, I have two questions. On the layoff of federal workers, potentially, the president said yesterday that Democrats will be to blame if federal workers lose their jobs. Historically, though, in past shutdowns, workers have been furloughed, but they have not been.
My thing is for a sitting president to go, oh, nope, it's just this one side, without looking at all the factors, including his own Republican Party trying to push forward a bill that would knock Americans off their health care. It's so dangerous. And so many people are still eating this up as if it's the gospel truth. And I think that's the most dangerous. He is banking on ignorance and bigotry to cover how bad this is going to be for all of us.
Laid off en masse. So wouldn't that be the president's call to lay people off?
As I've said repeatedly, Caitlin, this conversation about layoffs would not be happening right now if the Democrats did not vote to shut the government down. And as I also said last briefing as well, we are $37 trillion in debt, and the government is not receiving any cash. So
Levitt's answer was chilling. The government isn't receiving cash, she said flatly. Someone has to look at the balance sheet. She admitted that layoffs are an unfortunate consequence. But this isn't about money. It's about revenge. Trump himself said he'd target blue states and liberal agencies first to hit them where it hurts. Levitt accidentally confirmed it. She exposed the cruelty behind the policy. She also admitted something Trump never will, that $8 trillion of America's debt was added under his first term. She called it unfortunate, glossing over the fact that he promised to eliminate the debt entirely when he first ran. $8 trillion later, he's now pretending to care about the balance sheet. Even worse, she contradicted Trump's past claims about tariffs. Remember when he said tariffs were bringing in billions from China? Today, Levitt admitted that the government is not receiving any cash. Either they lied about the tariffs or they squandered the money. Either way, she told on herself and on him. Then a legal question brought the room to its knees. A Trump-appointed judge had ruled that his deployment of the National Guard in Portland was unlawful, saying,
remember that. His deployment was ruled unlawful by a justice that he appointed. And this comes on the heels of another justice in South Carolina that people are trying to say it was a Democratic judge, but their affiliation has not been made clear, and it wouldn't matter anyway because most judges are supposed to be neutral, had their house firebombed, had their partner have to escape from a first-floor window so that they wouldn't die from it. It is insane to me the levels of nonsense this administration has brought out in our country.
It was untethered to reality. Levitt shot back, saying the judge's opinion was the one untethered from reality.
Over the weekend, sorry, my second question. A federal judge over the weekend that the president had appointed to the bench in his first term in office basically argued that he could not deploy other states' National Guards to Portland. Basically said that it was untethered, his argument, to what is actually happening on the ground. Which local officials in Portland have said that the National Guard is needed there?
With all due respect to that judge, I think her opinion is untethered in reality and in the law. The president is using his authority as Commander-in-Chief, U.S. Code 12406, which clearly states that the president has the right to call up the National Guard in cases where he deems it's appropriate. And
reporters audibly gasped. She had just attacked a sitting federal judge appointed by Trump himself.
But not only that, to piggyback off of that, hey honey, welcome to the chat. The fact that she is literally butchering the law It is supposed to be in times of danger. There is no danger to the federal government, no matter how much they try to cry that there is. There is also no proof that any of this was needed. This is just Trump's way to distract from the fact that he is running our country economically into the ground. And I hope your day is going good, sweetie. I hope you enjoyed the lunch I packed for you.
Self, her legal reasoning, none. Just blind loyalty. Just the reflex of someone too deep in the propaganda machine to find the exit. Another reporter pressed her about why National Guard troops were still deployed in Washington, D.C., when the White House insists the city is completely safe. Her answer was almost comical, because we were invited to stay forever. That single sentence might haunt her career. She smiled, but it wasn't confidence, it was panic masked as sarcasm. When challenged by Cotlin Collins, she snapped. Maybe you should ask your Democrat friends in Portland why they refuse federal help. Collins fired back. Maybe you should answer the question. The room went silent, and Levitt froze. Then came the ugliest moment. When asked whether Trump would rule out granting clemency to convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's longtime associate and a known friend of Trump, Levitt, refused to deny it. I'm not tracking that one, she said.
Today the Supreme Court declined to hear Ghislaine Maxwell's...
Even before we finish and listen to what she said, the fact that this administration even tried to maneuver Ghislaine Maxwell, this literal convicted, not just trafficker, child trafficker, literal child trafficker, convicted child trafficker, and this administration refuses to flat out rebuke and say, hey, we don't deal with this. This is not us. Tells you all you need to see, including Ted Cruz's gaffe about protecting predators. The GOP is shaping up to be the party of predators. Just saying.
Appeal. Will Trump rule out granting her clemency? Is that something the White House is considering?
It's not something I've heard discussed, and we don't comment on clemency requests that may or may not have been made, but I'm certainly not tracking that one at this point.
Reporters waited for her to follow up, but she didn't. She just stared, fidgeting with her papers, and mumbled, "We don't comment on clemency requests." That wasn't neutrality, that was a flashing red light. The fact that the Trump White House wouldn't immediately rule out helping someone convicted of sex trafficking tells you everything about their moral bankruptcy. By the time the final questions rolled in, Levitt was visibly unraveling. Her voice trembled. Her hands shook.
They rocked her clock with those questions. But there's even rumors floating around, I'm going to say rumors for now, that idiot has floated around the idea of pardoning Diddy. Another person who, allegedly, because he was convicted more on finance stuff than the actual dirty stuff that a lot of us knew he was into. It's a mess how protective of predators this administration is. But not shocking if you noted and kept track of the fact that he was literally friends with the main predator, Jeffrey Epstein.
And when another reporter asked whether Trump planned to extend the shutdown until Democrats bend the knee, she lost it. She glared and said, maybe they should.
Wow.
Gasps filled the room. That was no longer a spin, it was a threat.
If the courts allow you to ultimately send in the National Guard into Chicago and Portland, do Democrats not have reason to be concerned that there are long-term plans by this administration to keep U.S. military or the National Guard in American cities, like what we're seeing here in Washington?
Why should they be concerned about the federal government offering help to make their cities a safer place? They should be concerned about...
That's what we have police forces for, ma'am. And anybody with more than 2 brain cells, which apparently you do not own, can see that this is an intimidation tactic against U.S. citizens in democratically led states, counties, and localities, especially cities. This is intimidation. You can't look at it any other way than that.
About this. They should be concerned about the fact that people in their cities right now are being gunned down every single night, and the president, all he's trying to do is fix it. And
Ma'am, there are people in rural cities that get gunned down. There are literal people in rural cities right now who participate in the drug trade, especially illegal meth trade and stuff like that. Fix your own closets before you try to clean out anybody else's. Thank you very much.
There has been a complete smear campaign by the Democrats and the media, quite frankly. I was reading Political Playbook this morning, one of the most inside the Beltway newsletters you can find.
It's a newsletter, ma'am. If you look at our main publications like the Times, it is literally a snooze fest when it comes to literal fascism that we're under. So miss me with the newspapers are being unfair. The fourth estate has been broken because a lot of them are owned by Trump cronies who want to get in good with this regime because they think it is going to elevate their financial status. Miss me with the rest of that nonsense.
You guys are framing this like the president wants to take over the American cities with the military.
The mask.
He literally does. Literally does. You don't have to be Einstein to figure that one out there, Barbie.
Was off. Minutes later, as more questions were shouted, she abruptly walked away from the podium. No closing statement, no professionalism, just a quick exit under the sound of cameras clicking and reporters yelling. The clip went viral within minutes. Millions have already seen the footage. Hashtags like #LeaveItMeltdown and #TrumpShutdown are trending worldwide. Even conservative commentators are privately admitting this was a disaster. Behind closed doors, insiders are whispering that Trump was furious. He reportedly shouted that Leavitt made him look weak. Staffers say she's on thin ice. Others say she broke down in tears after leaving the briefing room. For the Trump, loyalty is disposable. When his mouthpieces falter, he discards them like yesterday's headlines. That's how it always ends, with blame, betrayal, and silence. But make no mistake, this wasn't just a bad press conference. This was a glimpse behind the curtain of chaos. It revealed an administration run on fear, fueled by vengeance, and collapsing under the weight of its own lies. Trump's empire is cracking from the inside. His staffers are exhausted, his allies are panicking, and his propaganda is starting to devour itself. And that's why we speak. Because truth is oxygen, and they're trying to choke it out. If you're hearing this, share it. Spread the truth. Don't let the noise drown out what matters. Caroline Leavitt's meltdown isn't just a scandal. It's a symptom of a dying regime. The truth is bleeding through the cracks, and no amount of shouting can seal it again. We are anonymous. We are many. We do not forgive. We do not.
And that was anonymous, y'all. And everything they said about this administration is truth to power. At this point, they can't even cover for each other with their lies anymore. They are so deep in I gotta prove I'm loyal to this man. Even if I gotta bring myself into knots to try to do it. And her meltdown and crying after, that is symptomatic of somebody who went in, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, thinking that I can be a propaganda slinger. I can show my loyalty. But when grilled with facts and actual questions, she couldn't handle it. I think about all the asinine things that I'm messing up her name, but former President Biden's press secretary had to put up with, especially from that doozy idiot from Fox News. And she handled him gracefully. Rarely did you see her have an out-of-her-face moment, even though she deserved to have it with some of the asinine questions she had to entertain with him. This idiot was getting hit with actual factual questions that if she was as smooth as she thought she would have been able to answer properly, and she couldn't. She was confrontational, combative, and made up numbers. Oh, we're 300, 200, even 100%. It's like, okay, now that you've proven that you didn't pay attention in remedial math class there, honey, why don't you bring out some real numbers? Because according to the bill that the Democrats showed that the Republicans wanted to pass, the Republicans would have raised not only RX prices for average American citizens, but would have taken millions off of their sponsored health care. And that is why the Democrats are not playing ball with this regime. Because if they give in to these demands, they are telling American citizens that if you get sick, you're on your own. And I don't know about you, but for me as a voter, a serious voter with an A+ report card, that would kill anybody's chance, Democrat or Republican, from getting my vote. I don't want to see seniors, disabled, or struggling families not able to get health care. That is a big no-no for me when it comes to what's important. And the fact that there are people still trying to spin this as, oh, it's the Democrats trying to protect immigrants that aren't here legally, which is a lie, instead of protecting American citizens from all walks of life who happen to qualify for these programs, not be kicked off of them, shows me that we are in for a long, dirty fight. We are 7 days in to this administration's shutdown. This is a Trump shutdown, whether people want to accept it or not. And until Trump mans up, stops being a big-ass toddler baby, and becomes the president that he claims to be, we are going to be stuck. And I, for one, am worried about the 700,000 plus federal workers who are currently not being paid, who are being forced to say this is a Democratic issue when it's not, and other asinine things to just try to maybe salvage their jobs when they get back. Even though this administration has made it known, they are checking people's affiliations. They are checking their socials. They want a liberal purge. Even though, as they've done before, firing somebody for liberal views, and then having to beg them back because they are the ones getting the job done. It is chaos. It is unnecessary. It is a clown show that people just accept because some of you really want to be able to look down on others. And until we get those of you who are ready to tank us all, to uplift your own hateful ideals out of power, we are going to be and stay in trouble. But I don't want to keep it on a sour note, y'all. Even though I am coming off fighting another cold and stuff, I do look for little bits of joy, not just these god-awful stories about this regime. So we are going to try to palate cleanse. Let me see if that's the next video. No, that was the judge's thing. Oh, before we do that, let me quick recap the Comey thing. This is Morning Joe, which I don't watch, but they did a quick comprehensive thing on Trump yet again abusing his power, going after an alleged enemy who used to work for him, his own former AG, James Comey, Federal Director Comey. Let's hear what this is all about.
About a half hour, former FBI Director James Comey is set to be arraigned at a courthouse outside Washington, D.C. Live look there, Alexandria, Virginia. That Virginia grand jury indicted Comey last month on charges including obstruction of a congressional proceeding. Joining us now live outside that Alexandria courthouse is MSNBC Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delaney. Ken, good to see you. Walk us through what we should expect will unfold there in the hour ahead.
Hey, Jonathan. So we're awaiting the arrival of James Comey. We have not seen him at least walk into the front door of this courthouse. This is a pro forma hearing. It's an arraignment, so it's an opportunity for the charges to be read against Mr. Comey, those two charges of lying to Congress and obstructing an official proceeding. He'll be able to enter a plea. We expect him to plead not guilty. And then there'll be some discussion about arrangements for release, and there may be some other extraneous matters raised by his lawyer. He's represented by Pat Fitzgerald. We haven't seen him either, but viewers may remember Patrick Fitzgerald, a prominent figure in the legal community, longtime DOJ prosecutor, served as a special counsel investigating the leak of a CIA agent's name 20 years ago, won a conviction against Dick Cheney's chief of staff. Here's an interesting coincidence. The lead FBI agent in that case against Scooter Libby, who was later pardoned by George Bush, is now one of the agents investigating the James Comey matter. He came out of retirement to do that. He had previously endorsed Kash Patel, so he's believed to be a kind of a MAGA figure. But he is now a special investigator.
Compromised MAGA figure. I haven't heard Scooter Libby's name in so long. I thought he would stay under the rock he slinked under. But of course he's come out to show loyalty to this dumb dictatorship. It is so ridiculous. And as much as I don't really like Jim Comey, I laugh when his fucking books went to the bargain bin. I think his October surprise was garbage. The fact that Trump is targeting him as an enemy now because he did not want to continuously target Hunter Biden and the Clintons just shows you how petty, vindictive, and childlike Trump is.
On the James Comey case. And so that's what we expect to unfold. We don't think it'll be a very long hearing. We also expect that Mr. Comey, he's surrendering essentially, so he will be booked and processed by the FBI this morning, which could include him being fingerprinted and a mugshot taken, which would be a remarkable moment for a former FBI director, Jonathan.
Wow.
Hey, Ken, even
we literally have a former president who has a mugshot because he was charged in Fulton County. There's still 91 counts waiting for him when he gets out of office again, and the 34 convictions in New York. Because need I remind you, whether you like it or not, America literally elected a fucking sitting felon.
We've talked about conservative legal thinkers, conservative legal scholars, basically disregarding these charges against James Comey, saying they're a joke, that they're in conflict with themselves. If they are as weak as even these conservative legal thinkers say they are, how long before the court throws these charges out?
That's an interesting question, Joe. It depends on what strategy Comey's lawyers decide to pursue, because there's an argument to be made that they should drag this out, and because they want it would behoove them to get discovery in this case and obtain all the correspondence and all the memos and text messages in an effort to show whether Donald Trump or people at the White House like Stephen Miller actually influenced this prosecution, because that would support a motion to throw it out on the grounds of selective and vindictive and malicious prosecution. But that could take some time, obviously. That could take more than a year. That kind of discovery doesn't happen overnight. So that's one way that this could go.
But it would be smart simply because anybody could see that is what this was. But it would be a brilliant law tactic to show that this is honestly open retaliation for not falling into Trump's line and that it's illegal. So I hope that Comey's lawyers do pursue it that way. But like I said, there's 2 minutes left. We are going to palate cleanse from all of this nonsense by showing this little video. I love little black babies. I followed them when I was on Twitter, and then I deleted my Twitter. I follow them on YouTube now. They do a lot of videos and shorts, and this short cracked me up because Halloween is coming up. And may your babies be as tough and sweet as this little girl. Let's get this fired up because it's adorable.
Your daughter goes wrong.
He's like, huh? Don't play with me. Look, you ain't stealing her joy. Like, take that off. Let's go shopping. I love that. That was from the Mitchell family. And it's just little bits of joy like that I am trying to keep my spirits up with, because we are not in good times. There may be some that want to act like, oh, it's not that bad yet, because they're not feeling the financial crunch just yet. But when I say it's coming, because we let somebody who has no true economic background, whether people want to count the rate, he's a billionaire. Yeah, through shady means. He bankrupted several casinos on the East Coast. He's declared bankruptcy way more than once. Trump is bad for business, whether people want to accept it or not. But I will be back with more of these thoughts on Friday. I will be back with a finished Mau Mau and probably another surprise. I did a short about it the other day. I did a really fun thing for Greg. He's a big Zelda fan, as I am, so we've got a Sheik figure that we will more than likely be painting on Friday. I'm really excited about that. But I'm going to wrap this up, continue to work on Mau Mau, show you the finished product on Friday. Thank you all for sitting in. Actually, Wolf, thank you for sitting in with me on your lunch break, dear. I'll see you when you get home. I'm glad you enjoyed your lunch. Either way, please hunker down, take care, shop wisely. Try not to overspend because we do not know where the economic turns are going to be in the next few months. And the best thing you can do is protect yourself financially and protect where you're living. See you all Friday. Thank you for watching.